Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ESGCT's Ask the Expert. So, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a career-focused program where we try to present different options that scientists can do with their degrees. So we get experts from different areas within the scientific community, most times within the field of gene and cell therapy, because that is our focus. And it's really an interactive career session. And our target audience is master students, PhD students, and early career researchers, or ECRs, so basically postdocs. My name is Vanessa Woods, and Irini and I are the student board members for the ESGCT. We're the ones chairing this session, and we will take you through the program. So normally every time we have these sessions, we have a special speaker, and if you're not new to ESGCT, then you will also recognize our speaker today, who is no stranger to us. And if you've ever had the pleasure of sitting through one of his lectures, then you know you're in for a treat. So without further ado, I will turn over to Irini, who will take over to introduce our very special speaker today, and we get started in the program.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I'm super excited today to have Vincenzo and Cerullo with us to discuss startups and spin-outs, which I'm very sure it's one of the most hot topics that a lot of us are interested. As I'm sure you all know, Vincenzo is a professor at the University of Helsinki, but at the same time, he has set up his own startup called VALO Therapeutics, and he's here today to speak about it. So Vincenzo, if you would like to share your screen.
Sure, and thank both for the very nice introduction. Let's see if I get the right one. Yep.
Perfect. Just very quickly, as you know from the previous sessions, we really want you to be involved. As like Vanessa said, this is a session for younger scientists to get access to an expert's opinion, expert's input. So please send us your questions live as this is all happening. You can just do this via the live chat window on YouTube. And once we are done with the interview, we will do our best to share most of the questions. So Vincenzo, let's get started.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And thank you everybody for joining today, joining us today in this session. Hopefully this will be useful and fun. I will start with, my name is Vince, and I'm a professor, as Irina said, in biological drug development. I'm also head of a research center called Drug Research Program, among other things. My expertise in vaccine development and more particularly in cancer vaccine development. Recently, which was a good news, I want to share with you. Expertscape has ranked me as number 9 in the world for my expertise, number 3 in Europe, and number 1 in Finland and in Italy. And of that, I'm very, very proud. My lab is called IVT Lab, and we have it's fairly young lab. We set it up about nine years ago. We have more than 100 publications, more than 20 patents, and more than 30 invention disclosure disclosed to University of Helsinki. And in addition to that, we have also spun out a company called VALO Therapeutics, with the pre-seed funding of about $500,000 and the seed funding of about 17 million. And we are now up for several good things that I will hopefully tell you about during this time. But before that, I have a personal disclosure to do. And the disclosure is that I'm not really trying to teach anything to anybody here. I just want to genuinely share my experience and to tell you what were the ingredient I put in that took me here, and not really be arrogant or pretending to teach you anything or to tell you that you should do what I have done. Having said that, I will very briefly take you through the journey of my past 20 years or 15 years, probably, from where I started to now. And in particular, as Irina said, I will focus on about how I spun up the company and what that meant for me, and how I did it, and what were the most challenging part, and how did I come out from it. Let's start with the starting point. Well, to start with, I was really not focused on science whatsoever when I was younger. I was interested in surfing mostly, and I actually had a surf shop which I was running very happily with my friend. Nevertheless, I decided to go to university. So I went to pharmacy school, and then I start to be a little bit exposed to science. Particularly, I met during those time this old man here, whose name was Luigi Minale, and this person really inspired me and somehow transferred me the love for science, which is something that still keeps me happy and alive nowadays. So my first very small piece of advice is pick a supervisor that inspires you during whatever you do at any career level. I always say also to my students that even my collaborators, I pick collaborators that inspires me, collaborators where we can learn something, people that we admire somehow. So if you have the chance, let's do that, because life is unpredictable, as I said. Then from this love for science, things became a little bit serious. I abandoned surfing somehow, and I started dedicating into real science. So I moved from Italy. I moved to Houston, Texas, where I spent most of my pre-finish time. And I call it the learning time, is where really I start learning the rule of becoming a scientist. This is picture from the very early time in Houston, Texas, where I spent pretty much about a decade, probably a little bit less, 8-9 years. This is also with my ex-professor Lucio Pastore and Gabriele Toietta. This is very beginning here on the right is my very first virus that I made, an helper-dependent expressing GFP. Was fun time, but also a lot of work. I could not even speak English back then, so you can imagine it was really tough time, but I really learned a lot. And of course, I could still surf from time to time, which was a big plus. But from Houston, then life brought me here to Finland, and here life got very, very interesting. I started my laboratory in 2012, and I start to take some scientific responsibility as PI, and a lot of things happen. I don't even know where to start there, but the topic today is not about that. But I at least want to share with you probably one of the things I'm mostly proud of, and it's basically when I was installed as a full professor at University of Helsinki, and my lecture was chosen to be given at the Senate Square in front of a lot of politicians and rectors and vice rectors and all the big guys here at university. In my faculty, this has never happened. Actually, it has happened only twice. So I'm the second professor in the history of my faculty that has had the honors of giving the installation lecture at Senate Square. That same day, of course, my research group and also my family could join, and that was very, very nice time. But then, my life kind of, took me apart in the sense that I start living like, as I said before, as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, living some kind of dual role. One was very academic, is very academic. I mean, I'm a full dedicated, 100% committed professor. But on the other side, I also have a big driver in make our discoveries, our inventions, something that is very useful. So, of course, this is my research group, or part of my research group. This is a pre-COVID-19 pictures. So, things have changed a little bit, but, I don't have more recent pictures, you can imagine. And as I said, I'm fully, totally in love and dedicated to this research group. But simultaneously, I am also, we also spun out a spin-off company a couple of years ago, actually in 2016. And the journey, the second part of this small talk I want to give is what did really meant for me to do that, and how did we do. The company is called VALO Therapeutic, and as I say here, VALO was born out of a dream. The dream was something meaningful for me, which is, doing something for cancer. I'm not going in details why I'm so motivated for cancer, but if you're interested, you can actually check out my TEDx talk. It is very nice cartoon here, which basically bring us back to the real meaning of science. Do we really want to do something because we want a great paper, or do we really want to do something because it's important for us? If you have this freedom, if you can decide, pick always something that is important for you, something that you really feel you should do it. The Nature paper will come eventually, but it's not as important as you do something that you really are passionate about. Check out the text video, then you will know why. The second ingredient I want to put in how VALO was born is, let's start with a problem and not with solution. Us as a scientist, very, very often we commit the mistake that we start, our thinking starts with a solution. This is what we do. Let's think of a problem and the answer will be what I do. Try to think differently. Try to think you can do whatever you want. Nowadays, we have the technology to do almost everything. What is the problem you want to really solve? And try to look at the problem from a different perspective. In my personal experience, my problem was here, that's the only technical slide I have, but my technical problem was that the oncolytic viruses that we are using, they are very good at driving at an immunoresponse, but the majority of this immunoresponse is towards the virus and not towards the tumor. So sometimes I have said, it's like having a Ferrari, but not really having the steering wheel. So you initiate this strong immune response, but you don't know where this immune response is really going. It is cheap, but just buy a steering wheel, then your Ferrari will go exactly where you want it to go. So with this in mind, we invented Peptigrad, which is basically these viruses that are coated with tumor antigens, and this allows a precise direction of the immunological response. I think, of course, I'm biased and for probably stupid things to say, but I think this was a very good idea. But when it comes to spin-off company, when it comes to commercialize your ideas, a good idea is not enough. And in fact, here I like to share the picture of my younger brother, who is 10 years younger than I, and he claims that he has had the Facebook idea before Zuckerberg. And I believe him. The point is that to have a good idea is not enough. Nobody really cares about good ideas. The world and the lab, our lab, are filled with good ideas. What makes the difference is who can take that idea from your lab into something useful. Well, now, of course, I'm not saying that Facebook is useful, but basically to actually, really push your idea outside your lab. I mean, and that's in a way, it's the Death Valley for scientists. a lot of lab I know, and a lot of students, not only my students, but students around the world, you know, they have fantastic ideas, and we are so proud of our ideas. But we should start thinking, and if you want to commercialize your ideas, you should start thinking that your idea is not as valuable as you think. This was very shocking for me. That's why I want to share this thought for you, because when I started my first spin-off company, I was thinking, give me a break. This is my idea. I should have at least 90% of this company, because this company doesn't exist without my idea. It's only now, several years later, that I understand that that way of thinking was very stupid in a way. I mean, there are a lot of good ideas, but how do you make this idea? How do you overcome the, you know, the valley of death is what really matters. And that's the reason. So don't be surprised if one day you approach a venture capitalist or any kind of investors with a fantastic idea, and they will propose you 10% of shares. And they will take the 90. And you're like, you know, are you crazy? This is my idea. This company won't exist. But don't be surprised, because they are the one that will need to make your idea to become something. Otherwise, it would be just, you know, a nice paper. So this is another thing I wanted to actually share with you. In my personal case, I was at the right time, in the right place at the right time, and I have a natural tendency to trust the environment I am in and to listen to people around me. So I went to basically to University of Helsinki Innovation Services, which is basically the tech transfer of our faculty. And actually I discussed with them this idea. They pushed me back, and then they called me after a couple of days, asking, like, you know, but that idea you were talking about, it doesn't sound like, you know, very stupid. Can we discuss about it? For me, you know, basically everything I know, or the little I know about commercializing ideas, I've learned from these people, and I've learned in this experience. They helped me structuring the idea, they helped me filing the patent, they instruct me on how and when to file the patent. They also helped me securing the pre-seed funding. I mean, there is a time where your project is not interesting anymore from the research point of view. And it's not appealing yet from the commercial point of view. But you still need to do some experiments, but nobody wants to do it, and you don't have money to do it because, you know, your paper is already, you know, out eventually, and you're not that curious about that experiment. I always say sometimes I say drug discovery is different than drug development. The phase of drug development is quite tough. So you need some kind of pre-seed money, which, you know, these people helped me to secure. Of course, they helped me to structure the spin-off company, to recruit the management team and the CEO. And of course, nowadays, they are still part of the board of my company, which basically this secure the fact also in my personal case that everything goes pretty much smooth. They also, and probably was not very difficult for me, they also kind of taught me, or we thought together that we should think big. And of course, with big thinking come big challenging. And one of the most challenging part when you start a spin-off company is how do you recruit a CEO and how do you recruit the management? I mean, who are these people that will come and work for you and will marry your idea? I said it was quite challenging. I don't necessarily like flying, but I really did it a lot to go all over the place to find the right husband for my little daughter, which was my project, on one side. On the other side, I had to come out from my comfort zone, and I had to, as I say, break the wall of the academia and start pitching this idea in environments that were not the safe environment of Congress and convention where I was used to talk about science, but were a different environment. Here I was pitching in a bar, and here I was pitching at Karolinska Institute, and here I was pitching in an event called the Campus Seminar, organized from an important TV producer called Saku Tuominen. Here I was pitching at Slash, which is a startup event that makes about 20,000 attendees per year, so it's a very big event. So I was actually exposed taken out from my comfort zone, exposed to a lot of different environment. And I had to, convince people, investors mainly, that this was an idea that really it's worth to put money in. So with all this effort, the first spin-off company, which was called Province, then the name was changed. As a note, I did not decide that the name of Province was actually funded in 2016. Now the company is a little bit bigger. We are more than 20 full-time employees. And those are just some of the people. We have Nusio. We are working not only on cancer, but we're also developing a wide spectrum COVID-19 vaccine and a lot of other projects that hopefully you will hear soon in another talk, but probably not now. VALO has been taken up by the ERC website several times because it's a spin-off company that comes from one of the ideas presented in one of the ERC on my ERC consolidator grant. It was selected as the most successful story in 2016 by Slash. We have won a prize in Principality of Monaco as one of the most innovative companies in Europe. Last year in 2020, we have been in the final for the Falling Walls event, which was held in Berlin last year. And we have been nominated as among the 15 biotech company that is driving innovation in Finland. So I feel that those small ideas we were doing in the lab, after a lot of things, has become something that has potential to really treat a cancer patient and to give them more hope, if nothing else, but hopefully even more. Last thing I want to tell you is about my role in the company, because this question comes up very often. What is your role in the company, and how do you really combine the academic work with the company work? And my answer is always this one. So for people that don't know, she's my daughter, and as you can imagine, she's also the love of my life, and she will never get married because she will always stay with me. I know that you guys are laughing because what I said is very stupid, but I just want you to think for a second about your projects. And I know that if you are a good scientist, you think about your project exactly as I'm thinking about my daughter. This is my baby. It will never go in any other hand because it's mine, and it will always stay with me. That's basically the easiest way to think a good project. We all need to know that projects, as our daughters, we have an idea and we developed and we invent something, but if we want to micromanage this project for the entire life of this project, it will never work out. So we need to be ready to let it go at some point. We need to be ready to the fact that the project is going away from your hand, is landing somewhere else, and you need to trust that the people where the project is landing in the hands of are good people, and they will make something significant. Of course, you can visit on Sundays, on weekend, and of course, you are very welcome in Christmas and Easter time to visit your daughter's family, and you are always there when it's needed, but it's not yours to manage. This is, one of the last things that I also want to share with you, because at least in my own experience, the fact that my idea was not worth it 9% of the shares, and the fact that I had to let it go in the hands of somebody else has been the most painful thing that I had to do during this journey. And if you think for a second about your best project that you have at the moment you are working on, I'm pretty sure you can feel my feeling. So my final consideration are: think twice about the meaning of your science. Do something that you care about. Be creative. The world does not need the more Me Too science. Don't worry, challenge the paradigm, because this is where innovation really comes from. Get out of your comfort zone and break the wall of academia, because we need scientists to be more outspoken. We need scientists to get out of our lab and to explain a little bit better to the world what we are doing and why what we are doing is important. Last piece of advice I can tell you, I want to give to you is whatever career path you choose and whatever career path will be your next, just pay attention on one thing. It has helped me a lot. Just do something that in the way that you enjoy the act of doing it, not arriving, not the destination. I've had a lot of, we call it a kind of speed dating with the students, where we can ask you questions. And I remember one student, it was in Sweden, she asked me, when can I breathe? And I was thinking like yesterday, because if you're doing this because you want to get somewhere, then it's not the right job for you. You need to be doing what you do because you like doing it. You like the journey. It's a little bit like sailing. When we sail, we are not thinking, I can't wait to get there, because then you better have a motorboat. But if you're sailing, you are enjoying the act of sailing. And that's enough. You're not thinking, I need to get there fast. I'm so happy to be where I am. I hope I will never finish my postdoc. I hope I will never finish my PhD studies, because it's so great to be here. I hope I will never finish my professorship, because it's so great to be here. I don't want to get anywhere. Of course, life will bring you somewhere at some point, but enjoy your journey, not the destination. That is my last piece of advice. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully we will have a good discussion if there are questions. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, thank you, Vincenzo. I will start. Can you please stop sharing your screen when you get a second? Perfect. Okay, I really want to thank you, because it's always so wonderful when people like you take the time to not just be with us for that hour, but more importantly, take the time to prepare this presentation and share the journey. I think this is mainly what we're looking for. Definitely myself as a postdoc, like I definitely needed that motivation, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people of our generation. It was truly wonderful to go through your journey with all the ups and downs. I think that's the most important. I feel like we live in an era that success is like what we're constantly striving for, and we always need to be presenting ourselves as successful and doing this and doing that. But really, every time I've listened to someone's journey, it's never just like this. There's like all these moments, and even the simplest thing that you said, because I'm also not a native English speaker, and these days, it's considered the most normal thing to be able to speak stellar English. And I know your pain, starting as a Mediterranean person, moving abroad, not even being able to speak English. Or I lived in Liverpool for my first year abroad. I couldn't understand people, right? So it's all these moments like you said, I guess at some point you do find yourself having a more settled career, but it doesn't just happen like this. So yeah, thank you so much for taking this time to prepare the presentation, because it was lovely. I'm sure others agree. So I'm going to start kind of like where you left it off. Definitely the most important thing is the journey, and that is, I guess, where a lot of people struggle, again, because we want something and we want a solution for our career now. But at the same time, science is kind of like a slow process, not just in your findings, but in your personal evolution. What was the moment? Because I think being an academic has a very specific mindset. We think about experiments and papers and, all that in repeat. And so what was the moment that you went like, okay, I'm taking this idea forward. It's not going to just be, another paper. It's going to be a company. What was that moment that, brought you to, okay, not just writing the next paper?
Well, I need to confess something, because hopefully it's only us. So I need to confess something. So that that particular project, although now seems somehow normal, but I think when I start thinking about it, was too innovative. So back then, it was the very beginning of my independent career. I had only one student, and we had a monthly budget of probably 100 euros. I mean, we had very, very, very little money. So for me, I was in that particular moment really looking for fun to do experiment. I want money to do experiment. I noticed that when I start pitching the idea to with people that were more commercially oriented, they saw the potential of that idea more clear than the classical normal academic. I always remember the first time I wrote that grant, I had a fantastic revision, and one of the reviewers said, well, this is a fantastic idea. It's such a pity it's only based on the applicant beliefs, but there are no evidence whatsoever that these things could work, because it's so innovative and it's so new. So in a way, I think in that time, it was a couple of months. I mean, everything happened very, very fast. I mean, we went literally from 100 euros to probably 10 million euros in our bank account in 2 months. So that time, things were happening every day, and I thought this now it has potential. People are realizing, yes.
And that's another interesting point, is kind of like, what we do in the field of cell and gene therapy. I make viral vector every week. I transduce different types of, a lot of times when I'm conveying my either PhD or postdoc project to my friends or to my family, they really give me the look of like, you're using viruses to treat diseases. For us, it's also normal, because we've definitely normalized it, right, in our brains. Actually, the first conference I went to was in 2015 in Helsinki, and I did attend your presentation about peptigrad, and I was in the beginning, right? And I was in the beginning of it was my first scientific conference ever. I was, I believe, 23 or 24 years old, and I was working with lentiviral vectors. I had just started, and when you presented that idea of having the peptides being shown and recognized, I was like, I mean, because I chose some to present back when I went, I was super excited. And again, like these kind of ideas that sound so exciting to our brains, trying to convey them to the average population, people are like, you're doing what? So how did you go about? There is a massive difference between presenting to the academic world and getting stuck in the nucleotide position or a protein versus pitching your idea and wanting it to sound both like something feasible and not crazy, but also exciting, innovative. They're completely different styles. So how was that journey for you?
I remember the morning of my very first pitch, which was not really well prepared, but because I was taking shower, like I think probably 1 hour before. And then I start to think that what people really understand is the fact that we get the flu all the time, and we recovered from the flu. I mean, it was a pre-COVID-19 area, so it was to say that. So I remember I went there, and my pitch started like, everybody got a flu, and we know that we can clear out the virus from our body very, very easily, right? And they were like, yes. But tumor is different, because tumor is very stealth, and our immune system, which I call the police of our body, does not recognize it. So what if I would tell you that we can take those flu virus and we can cover it with piece of tumor, so that when this is within our body, then we will react against the virus because it's normal. But because the virus is dressed as a tumor, we will also react against the tumor. I think this was my very first pitch, which was completely improvised. And I get stick with it because I realized that people understand that process.
That's it.
So still nowadays, I talk about everybody gets a flu, and I still use that metaphor.
Right. Okay. Wow. Well, but clearly you're also, talented in that sense, being able to come up with a way to communicate with people and pass on the ideas and make it relatable. And that's another thing, perhaps I feel all of us as scientists need to improve with, because we live in our micro world. But, it is very, very different in the process out there, which brings me to my next question. Yes.
This is a secret, but I suspect that my lab member have a book with my metaphors.
I am sure. I don't think this is hard to believe.
I don't want to hear them.
I think I might text them later. Later. But yes, which brings me to my next question, which honestly, I felt for you like my stomach when you said, how did they only give me 10% of my shares? This is, you should see how I communicate with my Cambridge supervisors about my second paper. It's the most important piece of work. We really need to get it out. I feel so attached to this piece of work. So if you can tell us a bit more about that process of starting as, this is my baby, it's getting out there, to what do you mean this is not all mine, and what do you mean I need to give you the shares of my company? And it must have felt almost like a process of giving away something, like constantly.
It was fun time, because I had no idea. I didn't even know what a share would mean, and what when the investors invest money, you will get diluted and all these things. It was completely unknown to me, those mechanisms. So what I did, I actually, during that time, I talked with a lot of friends which had gone through same mechanism, not non-scientists, but friends that were investors, or they've been dealing with investors, or lawyers, or all kinds of things. And everybody was saying that usually, 10-20% is given as a shares to the inventors, because it's the management team that gets all the shares, because those are the ones that really do the work. It was extremely disappointing. And I remember complaining to my wife about that, who is a pediatrician, so she's basically not in finance either. And I was thinking, how is it possible? And she was reinforcing me. She was, no, but it cannot be possible. The company would not exist without you.
This is our way of thinking. This is where we start from. Nothing could exist without our ideas, and then it's so painful. It's like, how don't others see this?
Yes, but that's the way it is. And of course, now that I see all the work and all the risk and everything that these people have put into my idea, now I understand, now I understand that it's fair. Of course, I also need to be said that I spun out this company from the University of Helsinki that has a different system, which I think is very similar also to Oxford, but has a different system to spin out companies, not to the mentors is given a little bit more. But nevertheless, regardless, now I understand, and we should really understand as a scientist that whenever we get to that point, don't be surprised if people will only give you, a minority of shares, because the big work is ahead of you, and I mean, you need people to be incentivized to do this work, and the only way to really do it is to give them shares on the company. So you need to have it available.
I'm going to ask like a very short question, and then I'm going to let Vanessa take over so that you can start answering the students from the live the questions from the live Q&A. But could you just spend a couple of minutes briefly outline like the different parts of the process? Obviously, you go with your scientific idea, and what are, like, you would say, the key points of the process of commercialization, because this is something we really have no idea about.
Yes. So you go with your idea into, first of all, if you think that this idea has some commercial potential, do not publish your idea anywhere. Cannot be in abstract, it cannot be in conference, it cannot be anywhere, otherwise the patent cannot be filed, and if there is no patent, I'm pretty sure there is nobody that really want to invest into something that, so you need to be very careful, and you need to contact your tech transfer very, very early to say, well, listen, I'm working on this project, and this might be, this might have really commercial potential. Are you interested or not? Somebody has to pay the lawyer to do the work, the patent attorney to do it. So you need to agree on who's paying, and you need to have very solid, otherwise, if you publish the paper, it's all gone. So that's the first thing to do, and to pay attention to, keep the data only for you. Contact somebody early enough, agree on filing the patent. The day after the patent is filed, you are free to do whatever you want. But you need to file that patent. Then you have 1 year to put more data in your patent, but you need to wait that day. And that's the first step. The second step is basically, is it something that do you want to spin out a company, or you want to license your invention to somebody else? If you want to spin out the company, it's one thing, and then you need to start thinking, who are the people that will put the money into these things? So you need to really start looking for potential investors. Of course, there are public money available to do this, but usually they are, they work like a grant, so they are very slow. You need to apply, and then in 1 year the results, and the reviewer probably will say something. So that's to really do things at a certain level, you need to go with private. At least this is again N01 experience, but I would go with private investment. So people that want to invest in your idea, which basically means they give you 10 and they expect 100 or 1,000 or 1 million back. So they are very motivated, and they also bring structure, they bring focus, they bring a lot of good stuff that you can also learn and take advantage. So patent, look for CEO, look for management, look for investors. When all this is in the air, then you spin up the company. I wouldn't do it before, otherwise you don't have money, or you don't have the management. And of course, investors, they won't invest in you if you don't know who's the CEO is going to be.
Yeah.
Can you give me 10 million? I'm going to find a great CEO. No. I have a great CEO. Can you give me 10 million? Yes. So,
So you need to present them with an idea and a team, basically.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of investors invest in the team. Again, they know the idea is good eventually. There are a lot of good ideas, but there is a team that can pull it out and then pull it off, and
Right.
then
Which is what you were saying, is not only about the idea, but who is going to take it and propel it, right?
Exactly. You always remember My Brother versus Marcus Zuckerberg.
Yes, it's sad.
There is a big
Sad
analogy. So
analogy.
you need to have a Mark on your side.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, I'm gonna let Vanessa take over for now, and we'll get back. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Irini. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that very wonderful talk, Vincenzo. It was a treat as expected. And we do have some questions that came in live. So for everyone else who is here, please feel free to use the live chat in YouTube. And in case we don't get to ask your question here, you can always email them to us afterwards at ecrs@esgct.eu, and we will forward your questions to Vincenzo and he will get back to you. So your question will be answered no matter what. I will start first because your student is here with us, Manlio. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So first of all, Manlio says, we will never tell where the book of metaphors are. It's in a very secret place. And so his question is, can an idea be good, but to be ahead of the time so that the great audience is not yet ready for it? So how do you navigate that space if it is that what you're thinking is so far beyond where the science is, basically?
To be honest, we have experienced that a lot of times, unfortunately, and in particular, with one of the projects that we have now, cooking very soon into something very big. But we have had this project cooking for a very long time because I think it was too ahead of its time and people were not really paying attention to it. So I think it's a very good point. Innovators, they are very often ahead of their time, and it's, sometimes you just need to make peace and let your project cook for some times. I think we have a very good case of this that has been with us for 5 years before investors start to look into it and to think that, okay, this is a good project. Can you actually, Mario is actually joined me.
Hi, Mario.
Hello. Hi.
So, I mean, maybe I ask a follow-up question then, because if you say your idea is so far ahead that you have to let it cook for some time, but don't you think you will risk losing interest in it after a time because you can't do anything with it? How do you manage that situation to really keep motivated, to keep believing in your project?
It really depends on the idea. There are some ideas that seem much less relevant. For instance, in particular, I have one thing in my mind which I cannot disclose, but they were very irrelevant 5 years ago, and they are very relevant today. So it's you never know. There are right time and right place. This is back to the journey we were discussing. When you like what you do and you're not necessarily thinking to get there all the time. Sometimes it's also okay, to let it cook, to let it go, and to do something else. Then eventually, sometimes it comes back. And as I said, I cannot give you this example now, but I have a very good example of this that has been, I pitched this idea in the lab since Maglio came, and nobody really wanted to do it, and the investors were not interested, and the university was not interested. And nowadays, everybody wants to do it, and we are getting I'm not saying tens of millions, but we're getting a lot of attention and a lot of money for this idea that have been, really rejected by everybody in the lab. So sometimes we need to be patient, and time will tell.
Absolutely.
But then maybe I ask Manlio a question from his side. So you're a student of an entrepreneur. How much does that influence your thinking, the way you approach the science, and what you think you will do with it in the end?
Well, it totally changed the perspective because as before you mentioned, you start to switch in your mindset from this is going to be a paper, just a paper, and after this will be another paper, to an idea that potentially can impact the world. You know, it's a bigger challenge. It's like, okay, first, I just put it down something that can be useful in general to generate new knowledge. But if this new knowledge can then turn into something concrete for the big audience, that it's even better. So that impacts the way you are thinking, because if before you were just thinking about the narrative to make a nice project, a paper, now you hope that that can go out. And eventually you start thinking, how can the investor take it, or which are the challenges to make this suitable for patients and so on. So your problems approach change, and your problems are different. It's not the Western blot or the ELISA that are not giving you the right thing anymore. You know, it's that's it.
And also, if I can add something, I know this is very unpopular and it will probably require much larger discussion, but also if you think about ethics, I mean, when you publish something, you know, publication ethics, experimental ethics, when you know that something might reach the point of becoming something that people will use, the level of accuracy, of experimental accuracy in your lab, it goes up to 10 log. Because you know that it's not going to be just a dusty paper anymore, but at least I feel we are probably 10, 15 in the lab, and I feel that we are constantly under due diligence. You know, when you submit to Nature, they say, can we have access to raw data? We have constantly people have access to our raw data. And so why did you have only 18 mice? So why these mouses died? And why this is a constant thing that I don't think we would have it, to be honest, if it wasn't for, you know, the commercial side or the commercial angle that our lab has, which again I call it commercial. It's probably wrong term because we're not here making money, but we are here to try to get out of the lab some of our research, and that's basically the scope.
But I mean, as a student, you developing your own idea is different from when your PI is having that idea or pitching that idea. So how is it that you proceed with basically claiming your intellectual property? Because as a PhD student or a postdoc, you're working under a supervisor. So the same way in which if you're publishing a paper, your supervisor goes as a lost author, even though in principle you've done all the work. So in that situation, consider both of you. Let's say Manlio comes up with an idea and says, you know, this is what I would like to do, but you're working for Vincenzo. So how is it that you really own your idea while working under a PI? So you're not your own boss. How do you navigate that space as well?
Yes, I think it's a very important, yeah, this is a fantastic question, Vanessa. It's very important. I can tell you that at least in our lab, we are inventors. So if we're working on Malio's project, first of all, I don't think there is an idea that anybody can claim he had it or she had it on its own, I mean, under the shower. Right. We always have constant lab meeting and constant meeting. So there is always, if you look at our patent, there are always, you know, several inventors on the patent. Always many people. Sometimes the university gets upset about it, but I do claim that all the inventors are there, that everybody will benefit of this, because it's impossible to say this is Vin's idea or this is Manlio's idea. We are constantly, you know, actually the majority of the time, and you should really look at my TEDx talk, because the majority of the time, the idea, they come from the student. I don't give, in my lab, I've never given a project to anybody. I help them to take out what they really want to do, what is meaningful for them. Sometimes people stay in the lab for months not doing anything. And to be honest, it's very painful for me that I'm paying. But I know that if they get the idea, if it's, or at least if they feel it's their project, they will die for it. If I go there and give them my idea, my project, or if this is the perceptions, they will just make the normal hours and they go back and they can't wait to leave the lab. So I know it's a thin line and I know it's difficult, but if you manage as a supervisor or future supervisor to do that, I've found myself that is extremely efficient because a lot of colleagues, they come to us and say, I don't understand why you always get the good people. I'm not sure I always get the good people. Is that eventually the environment is good. They come here and they get motivated because they are doing what they like to do. They are doing what they have chosen to do. I don't know if this is your experience.
Yeah, that's my experience. And on top of that, you can always count on your colleagues because alone you will never go anywhere. You don't get anywhere, especially nowadays. First of all, you cannot be knowledgeable in everything. And even if you are shifting from an area to another area, you know that there are people better than you and that you know that you can rely on them. So in my opinion, it's even the fact that, yeah, I mean, no one is better than us. But I think inside the lab, among the lab members, but even outside, I mean, we have great collaboration. And the thing is, when you start perceiving that you are in a safe place and you know that everyone is in the same situation, then it's great. You know, there are many projects that I take care of just some parts and believe that it's another person totally happy and totally fine, because you know it's a joint effort.
Okay, so I have a two-part question from Salvatore Russo. The first question, what is the future of academia in your opinion? And the second question, what is the future that you hope for your company?
The future for academia, I do say I'm really enjoying and I'm really liking it. And I think it's very healthy for the academia to start exploiting, and sorry, my English is not perfect. So, but I like that the academia is finally using or exploiting or taking advantage of the scientist ideas and pushing those ideas forward, eventually making some money out of it. Why not? That's beneficial for the academy. So I'm happy that the academia started this process, and what I hope for it is that they will continue doing so. They will continue teaching the students that, I mean, if you do a PhD, you not necessarily need to become a professor. You might become a millionaire just because, you know, you have become a CEO of a company that you have created when you were a PhD student. I mean, this is such a fantastic story. And that's what I wish for the academia, you know, because I remember I come from time where we were very snobbish about it, where people like, I remember my first time I was involved in a patent in Houston, and then a spin-off company in my very early stage. I refused to be shareholder because I thought I was ashamed of it. I don't want to have, you know, conflict of interest. I'm a scientist. I mean, nowadays I think it was the stupidest things I could ever done, because like it's a very healthy way to justify your science. So I hope this for the academia. For VALO, I hope that VALO will succeed in treating cancer patients. I don't hope anything material for me. I really don't care. But I can't wait the time that we will cure somebody. That's my only wish.
Thank you. So I have a similar question kind of regarding the mistakes from Sarah Fayola. She says, great job, Vince. Which mistakes back in time you would avoid and which one instead you would repeat without any doubt?
It's a very good question. Hiring Maglio, I was told it was a mistake, but I trusted my instinct, and so that one of the mistakes I would not, I would do it again. I remember when we had the interview, it was in Canada, and we had an interview with my old student who is now moved from the lab. And I remember, so this student was, you know, one of the students that has really started with me. So I really trust him a lot. And after the interview, he told me, I think you should sleep over. You should think twice. But I really trusted my instinct. I emailed Mario, right away and hide him. This is one of the mistake that I would do it again. And mistake that I would not do, probably I will exactly do what I have done, including the good and the bad thing. Because, I mean, to be honest, I've learned a lot also in bad time. And to be even more honest, I've learned more in bad time than in good time. So really no regret. Again, I enjoyed the journey so far. So I cannot even see, the things that were
And
wrong.
they all help to shape the journey, right? Because only with the mistakes, you really you're forced to pivot and to improve yourself and push your mind and your thoughts beyond your boundaries and your own comfort zone in order to really get your idea and your company to where it is today. So I think it's good to have both. A balance is always better than just too much of one thing or the other.
Absolutely.
Let me just ask one more question and then we wrap up. So Firas Hamdan wants to know, when you pitch to investors, do you need to use more layman language or more scientific language? And congratulations on a great talk from Firas.
Thanks. Lay language. I mean, I like in general to use lay language. And I think in particular with investors, you should absolutely be simple so that to make sure that they understand what you want to do. That's the real way to do it. In addition, I like to use metaphors and I like to use, lay language anyway. So for me, that is not very difficult.
Okay. So maybe I have a question for Manlio from your perspective. Is there anything that surprised you when you started working for Vincenzo, and how is it that you feel like you've evolved based on his influence and the way he has helped you to develop as a student?
It's been a great journey, because the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying this because he's here.
Yeah, you can tell us later. You can really tell us later. It's okay. We understand.
I mean, I must say that Vincenzo is the kind of supervisor that I always wished for myself, but I didn't think that he was existing. That's it. That's how it was. So when I got, I thought, I thought like, this is too good to be true. So I always been waiting for the bad side to come out, but never did, honestly, to be honest. And that really motivate me in the bad times, because I mean, I don't think that there is any PhD student in the world that never faced the bad times. Maybe as you guys said, you have a project that you are in love with, it's not going through, you don't want to let it go because you don't want to shut it down, you don't want to start over from scratch. And I mean, this is the terrible, in my opinion, has been the most horrible thing for me, because what do I know? We want to feel useful. So, if you don't have a reason for go and do the PhD, everything drops. So that was when Vince was very inspiring to me. And now at the end of the journey, I can tell you that I developed, of course, as a scientist, but I would say that I would never settle for a teamwork or for a team leader, which is not as cool as he is. And I would never end up in a toxic environment. You know what I mean? Like, if you recognize that's not the place for you, leave right now, leave. I wouldn't even spend more time, if there are many projects in the world, there are many new branch of researches coming up. If it's not the right, okay, now it's the pandemic, but I would say in a normal time, get a better place. That's what I would say to all the students. Like, face the bad times, but if you feel that it's not matter of the bad times, it's matter of the environment, go somewhere else.
I completely agree. And
I would say this even if it was not here. I'm defending soon, so I mean, I'm not bound by salary reason anymore.
It's so. It's actually, there are research done that says that, PhD studies in particular is emotionally the toughest job on the globe, because it's the only job you do without being prepared to. I mean, usually you study and you perform. In the PhD studies, it's the opposite. You are asked to perform without knowing.
Yeah.
So emotionally, and I've seen it a million times, but emotionally is a very, very, very tough journey.
Yeah.
You get lost at some point. So, I mean, if you need to be surrounded by people that are empathic enough to get your being lost and support you emotionally, not scientifically, because you're good enough and everybody can do science, but not everybody can be supported emotionally when the bad time comes, because it will come, it's natural.
Yeah.
You know, it's every single PhD student goes in the same pattern, no exception.
And I think that's probably the most important message, because again, like, if you step out of just yourself, you just see it's this pressure to be successful, independent, this and that. And I don't know how many things a person can be on their own. Similarly, after my PhD and the postdoc now in the US, I'm starting to realize how many more things I could have had done had I have like a collaborator or like a more supportive approach than you should do it on your own, learn to be more independent. And I think, yeah, that is definitely the recipe for a mentally more toxic environment. So I think what you guys are sharing, like this message of collaboration and support, and not just this self-centered, I'm the best, I need to be successful, I need to be independent, I need to do everything on my own. I also hope that that happens with academia, because everything in academia is about ownership. You're either first author or nothing, or last author or nothing. So yeah, I hope that sinks in academia soon, with a new sort of like era of having also startups, spin-offs, collaborations and all that. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your perspectives. This was truly a very wonderful talk and quite insightful. We're so grateful for your time. And from my side, it's just been a wonderful experience. And I'm sure everyone else here on the live has learned something and has taken away at least one thing that they can apply whichever stage of their career they are, whether they're just trying to figure out if they even want to do a PhD, or trying to figure out how do I survive my PhD. So.
Also, the fact that we learned about Vincenzo's surfing love.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that was all, like, we downplayed this. We downplayed.
Vincenzo, would that be possibly a third company for you to start another surfing shop?
We have, now I'll tell you another secret. We have 2 more in the pipeline, but this is a real secret. So eventually there will be the 4th one.
Okay.
I need to be very fast.
I might apply if you would like to hire me. You have like the number 1 interested person here. Okay, so
Yeah,
I think thank you. So thank you for your time. I think it is time to wrap up. It was, again, I think we've said it so many times, it's honestly really, really useful and lovely. Just these messages of collaboration, enjoying what you're doing, thinking a bit more collectively, and also a bit out of this toxic mentality of I need to be the first or last author of the paper. And there's so many other routes you can go to. And we should always strive to support each other rather than just want to dominate. So yeah, really, really lovely messages. We enjoyed the metaphors. We, please keep them coming. And we're going to renew like a rendezvous for next month. Stay in touch. Please keep following us. If you have any suggestions, again, this is all done for the younger researchers. Like today, we learned things that, we didn't know about, startups, spin-offs, someone's journey. Please reach out to us. We can make arrangements. We have some, the next topics are already filled, but you should always feel free to reach out to us, suggest new things, ask your questions, because we are really trying to make this useful for the younger generation of scientists. We feel you, we're going through exactly the same thing, and we want this to be like an informal way of getting access to information that is very much needed. So yeah, we will see you again next month. But Vincenzo, thank you again for taking the time to create this presentation and walk us through your steps, your journey, the ups and downs. It was really, really, really fantastic. Thank you. See you next month.
Bye-bye.